This is a story told by an American tourist who visited Israel some years ago and had a rather unique experience. As you may know, Israel is a small country, and it only took a few days to cover the various regions of Israel, and the end of the trip found the tourist group at the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. The tour guide called the tourists' attention to the fact that this is one of the holiest sites to observant Jews throughout the world, and many came there to pray. And he particularly pointed out a little old man who stood at the very end of the wall at one side and was busy praying, and very seriously praying, and told the group that this gentleman's name was Mr. Goldberg, and Mr. Goldberg was rather well known throughout the country because he always went to the wall every day to pray. And the fact is that he'd been very diligent, and as a result there were a number of articles in newspapers about Mr. Goldberg, so he was fairly well known. One of the tourists asked the tour guide whether or not it would be appropriate for him to come up to Mr. Goldberg, interrupt him, and ask him a few questions. He was intrigued by this story, so he said, I don't think it would bother him a bit. He's used to the notoriety, and so he'll deal with it. So the gentleman stepped out, walked over to Mr. Goldberg, and he said, "Excuse me, Mr. Goldberg." And Mr. Goldberg turned to him and said, "Yes?" He said, "Mr. Goldberg, our tour guide tells me that you've come to the Wailing Wall every day, and that you're very diligent about it." And he says, "Yes," he says, "that is true." He says, "I come every day since my bar mitzvah." He says, "And how old are you?" He says, "Well, I'm 95 years old, and I come every day to pray." He says, "That's very, very intriguing." He says, "I can't believe it. Man, but," he says, maybe I missed once or twice. I wasn't feeling well, so I didn't go. But otherwise, I'm here every day." He says, "Mr. Goldberg," he says, "what do you pray for?" He says, "I pray for the well-being of my family, of my friends. They should be healthy." He says, "Allah is gesund." They should have parnusse, that means they should prosper. He says, "Unfortunately, most of them are dead," he says. "Sie sind gestorben, sie liegen dreht, gone." It's sad, he says. He says, "What else do you pray for, Mr. Goldberg?" He says, "Well, I pray mainly should be brotherhood in the world. Should be shulam in the world. You know what I mean?" He says, "That's what I pray for." He says, "Mr. Goldberg, do you think that your prayers are going to be answered?" He said, "Well, to tell you the truth, it's like talking to a wall.